What up, everybody? It's InstructaBeats back here with dividing whole numbers by fractions using area models. So this, of course, goes with our keep change flip song, but this is the conceptual part of visualizing what you're actually doing when you're dividing whole numbers by fractions. And again, we're using area models to do that. Okay. So the first thing we need to understand, right, is when we divide for one of two reasons. Either we're trying to figure out how many is in each group, right? Such as, let's say we had this math problem, 12 divided by 3, right? So if we were trying to figure out how much was in each group, we might say 12 cookies were split into 3 bags, and the question would say how many were in each bag, right? But today we're focusing on the other reason we divide, which is how many groups, right? So for instance, there were 12 cookies, they were putting 3 into each bag. How many bags did they need? So sometimes for division, we're asking ourselves, how many groups can I make, right? So for this division problem, if it wasn't a word problem, you could just simply say, how many groups of 3 can I make out of 12, right? And obviously we know that answer to be 4, right? But the same also applies even if there is a remainder, right? So how many groups of 3 fit into 20? Obviously we know the answer is 6 groups, right? And then there's going to be a leftover, so 6 groups with a remainder of 2. So when we think about division as in these terms, how many groups, it makes dividing fractions a little bit easier, right? So when we divide fractions, we can ask ourselves the same question. How many groups? So how many groups of 2/5 fit into 3? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my area model. There we go. Put that screen down. And I'm going to put 3 holes because that's how many I'm starting with, right? Maybe there we go. And I'm going to break my 3 holes into fifths because that's what my denominator is. Okay, so I have my denominator is 5. And so I'm going to do my best to split these into fifths, although this is not perfect to split them into 5s. You always want to do your best because we want fractions to be equal parts, as equal as we can make them. And I'm going to get my other pen out, right? And so what I'm asking myself right now is how many groups of 2/5 can I make? So that's one group of 2/5, right? Here is a second group of 2/5. Here is a third group of 2/5. Here is a fourth group of 2/5. Here's a 5th group of 2/5, even though it looks like 6, my handwriting's bad. Here's a 6th group of 2/5, and then we have our 7th group of 2/5. And then here's where it gets a little bit fun. Okay, we have 1/5 left over, but our answer is not 7 remainder or 7 and 1/5, because if you look, right, our groups were 2/5, and I have 1/5, which is going to be half of a group, right? So my answer is going to be 7 holes and then 1/2 of a group left over because I have 1/2 of my 8th group, right? But I am missing my other half. So that's a little bit confusing for some people, right? But because some people would say the answer is 7 and 1/5 because I had 1/5 left over. But again, we're asking ourselves how many groups. So it's 7 and 1/2 of a group. So my answer would be 7 and 1/2. So how many groups of 2/5 can fit into 3? 7 and 1/2. All right. So why don't you go ahead and try this one right here. Go ahead and pause the video, then try it, and then we'll go over it together. So hopefully you just paused it, right? And so I'm going to draw my 4 holes. Okay. There we go. And I'm asking myself how many groups of 1/8 can I make, right? 4 divided by 1/8. So I'm going to split this into 4ths and then into 8ths. I'm going to split it into 4ths and then into 8ths and then into 4ths and then into 8ths and then into 4ths and then into 8ths. And I'm going to ask myself, right, how many groups of, now my numerator is 1, so each group is only going to be 1/8. So I have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, 5 groups, 6 groups, 7 groups, 8 groups. And at this point, you're probably thinking, okay, 8 groups in each, right? So I know my answer is going to be, just because I'm trying to show this step by step, I'm going to show each one, but I'll do the favor of fast forwarding myself and talking a little bit faster. It was hard talking that fast. And finally, 32 groups. So if I had 4 holes and I was splitting them into groups, and I was trying to figure out how many groups of 1/8 I could make, 4 divided by 1/8 actually equals 32. So that's what you're doing when you conceptually draw this out using area models. As always, please check us out at InstructaBeats on Instagram, channel InstructaBeats, where you can find our Keep Change Flip song that will teach you the shortcut to do this. And as always, if you want our smart boards or have any questions, you can email us at InstructaBeats@gmail.com. Do the music, InstructaBeats out. You gotta keep change flip.